And the reason why this works, you guys, is because when you show up with vulnerability in that way, you build a foundation and an environment for more vulnerability. It says, hey, our relationship is a space that is safe for vulnerability. And for most of us in codependent relationships, there isn't that foundation of safety for vulnerability. Before we begin, I'd like us to take a moment to name the intention behind this space. This is Codependency Alchemy, a space for people who are tired of overthinking their relationships or shrinking themselves to feel chosen. I'm Alyssa, and I do this work because I've lived it. I have not arrived at some destination of healed, nor will I ever claim to be. I'm here for the journey, and I'm here to share that journey with you. At the heart of this work is my soul's mission to heal the mother wound, to be seen and witnessed in the things that we tend to hide from or reject. Over the last 4 seasons, this podcast has grown to one of the top 100 relationship shows, and we're just getting started. Before we begin, I have a favor to ask. Pause for just a second to make sure you're subscribed. If you're ready for honesty, more self-trust, and more peace in your relationships, then you're in the right place. I think it's safe to say that most of us feel real uncomfy with conflict. But today, I want to talk about something magical, which is turning conflict into connection, turning conflict into opportunities that actually bridge deeper connection, healing, and trust between us and our partners. So if you're someone who avoids conflict at all costs, or if you're someone who is in a relationship where it seems like conflict is a constant in your dynamic, please listen to this episode, because the 3 questions that I'm going to share with you guys have been extremely, although uncomfy, very illuminating for me in my relationship and how I show up in it. And it's honestly the way that I leverage conflict when it comes up in my relationship. So the problem that I see show up in our community a lot is when we hyper focus in on our partners and what they're doing or not doing. And what I've learned in my journey is whenever I hyper focus on Justin, it is quite literally just a way that I am overriding meeting something within myself. And what happens when we hyper focus or hyper fixate on the other person is we end up overriding ourselves. And in that overriding ourselves, we end up reacting and trying to control the situation, which only leads to more conflict. So it ends up being this vicious circle. There's the triggered moment when this person is doing or not doing something. We hyper fixate on them and what they're not doing or doing. And then we end up reacting from that trigger and trying to control it, which then leads to more conflict because then they feel controlled or they don't feel like they have autonomy. And then it just cycles and cycles and cycles. And this is quite literally what I mean when I say our relationships become mirrors, because we end up projecting our discomfort, projecting our own inability to look and see what's actually being triggered within ourselves. And then we end up in the cycle. And the only thing that comes from that cycle is finger pointing and blaming. So both people are usually blaming each other rather than just looking at their part in it. So these are the 3 questions that I ask myself whenever I find myself in that cycle to break the finger pointing and actually get to the root of what's going on. And this is exactly how we turn conflict into opportunities. So recently there's been something that has come up for us, and even though it's not happening in our relationship, it is happening close to us. And it has brought me to going through these questions because I think it's so easy to fixate on Justin, and that's what I was doing. And the second that I just turned it around, I could just see how much this was really a mirror for what I was avoiding within myself. So the example that I'm going to use, I'm going to stay vague in order to hold just like confidentiality for Justin and for our families and all the things. But there's this thing that is the trigger, right? Use whatever is triggering you in your relationship. Whatever you are fixating on your partner doing or not doing. So the first question we want to ask ourselves is, what do we wish they would do? Or what do we wish they would have done? So you can kind of finish this sentence. I wish that they would have just blah, 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 blah. So like for me, I'm really concerned about Justin processing information. And so what comes up for me when I write this out is I just wish Justin would process what he's feeling and what's going on for him and talk to me about it, or talk to someone about it to process the information. Like my fear is that he's not going to process it, and then that's going to somehow harm him or hurt him, right? So I wish he would just process it, is what is coming to mind, right? And then communicate that to me. It's a way that I'm trying to feel safe in this situation, which kind of goes into the second question, which is if they did that thing that you wish they would do, then how would you feel? If Justin processed this information, then I will feel safe. If Justin processes this information, then I'll feel more comfortable. I'll feel more confident. I'll feel more at ease. And this is that codependent piece, right? We want to try to control their behavior because we're attaching a feeling or a sense to them doing that action. When we're learning to get out of the codependent dynamics, we have to start seeing the emotion and the feeling that we're attaching to their action or attaching to them. Okay, so I know I'm being really vague in my example, but I can use another like real life example. Say you guys were making dinner and they were in a mood and they weren't talking to you at all when you guys were making dinner, right? So something I might say is, well, I wish he would have just talked to me at dinner when we were making dinner. I wish he would have told me that he just needs space. Oftentimes we are perceiving what the other person needs or wants. And I think a lot of us are in passive aggressive relationships, quite frankly, because no one feels safe to actually communicate what's going on. We feel the pressure to be the providers of this safety and this care for one another. And not to say that those aren't important things to be a provider of. Like, of course, we want to provide safety and care for our partners, but when the entirety of our safety and care is dependent on how somebody else is, that is where the dysfunction comes in, right? That's the codependent dynamic. I only feel safe when you act a certain way. So we start seeing these attachments for what they really are, and then we're able to provide that safety for ourselves so that we can kind of let our partner have some space, right? Some spaciousness to not solely place the burden on them, right? So I wish that he would just talk to me while we're making dinner. If he talked to me while we're making dinner, if he was just happy, right? Like if he was just happy when we were making dinner, then I can calm down. Then I can feel more at ease. Then we can have fun. Then it can be more enjoyable, right? And the third question is the most important one, which is the reality check. Are you giving them what you wish they would give you? Are you doing what you wish they would do? Now listen, I want to be so clear. I have yet to support someone in identifying the dynamic and them not seeing how they are not providing what they wish their partner would. So if we go back to my vague example with Justin and the thing that we're navigating, I am saying I just wish he would process his emotions. If he processes emotions, I would feel safe. And am I, returning it back to me, am I processing my emotions and communicating them to him? Because that's what I want him to do, process it and communicate to me so I know where he's at. Am I processing my emotions around this thing and communicating to him? And the answer was no, I wasn't. I was fixated on him processing his emotions, but I am not processing my emotions around this, right? I started to see, and like I said, this is across the board. I have yet to see a conflict dynamic or a cycle like this play out in a relationship where that person was doing what they wish their partner was doing. So often we want our partners to communicate something to us or engage or interact with us in a positive way. I'm saying positive again. I hate using positive and negative, but in a way that feels that feels the way we desire to feel. We are literally 10 times out of 10 not doing that for our partner. This came up in the membership recently where she was like, I just wanted my partner to ask for what he wanted and ask for what he needed. It seemed like he wanted help with blah, 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 but he didn't say, I need help with blah, blah, blah. And so then she just left. And I was like, well, did you say what you wanted? I just want to have an evening where you and I hang out without any issues, or I just want an evening where you and I can sit and watch a movie together. Like, did you say what you wanted? And it's like, no, he didn't say what he wanted, and she didn't say what she wanted. It was a mirror. No one's saying what they wanted. And the other partner is left to try to figure it out. And that never works. I want Justin to process his emotions, but did I tell him that? No. I didn't tell him that. And so what was really cool is that I asked myself these 2 questions. What do I wish he would do? How will I feel when he does that? Am I doing that? I saw how much I wasn't processing my emotions around it. And so then I came to him and I told him, I am feeling like I want to help and I don't know what to do. That's like me processing with him. Like, I want to help and I don't know what to do. And then I ended up processing my emotions. I broke down and cried because I feel helpless in a situation. But I wouldn't have been able to get to that place had I not reflected on all my attachments to him doing the work, right? And in me doing the work, guess what he did? He came forward and then he started sharing about how he's processing this information. It's just a mirror. It's always a mirror. And so often I get hit with the objection of why do I always have to do the thing? Why can't they do the thing first? And it's because this is your life. Right? If you're constantly waiting around for somebody else to do it first, it is quite simply an avoidance of responsibility for your life. I say that with love. I say that with love and with care. And I know it's a hard truth. But if you're constantly waiting for somebody else to do it first, you will wait forever. And I'm almost certain that it's only going to lead to more dissonance in your life, more feeling stuck, more feeling helpless. This is our life. I want to feel safe and secure. I want to feel connected. What am I going to do and how am I going to show up to my life to make sure that I am providing that for myself, not sitting around waiting for somebody else to do it first? And that is how quickly we can shift our relationships, because as soon as I flipped it on its head and I allowed myself to communicate what was going on and I allowed myself to process my emotions around the situation, I immediately got that reflected back to me in my relationship in the way that Justin showed up. And the reason why this works, you guys, is because when you show up with vulnerability in that way, you build a foundation and an environment for more vulnerability. When I say, hey, look, I'm going to show up in this space and be vulnerable. It says, hey, our relationship is a space that is safe for vulnerability. And for most of us in codependent relationships, there isn't that foundation of safety for vulnerability. So we're building it, and it's uncomfortable and it's unsafe because it is this it is this unknown. It hasn't been safe for us to be vulnerable for most of us. It wasn't safe to show up in that way. We had to be strong. We had to be resilient. We had to be caretakers. We had to fix. That is what we base our safety on, is overexerting, overdoing, overperforming, not realizing that it's literally breaking us. It is too big of a burden to bear, and it is unsustainable. That's why so many women, as they get older and they're in these 20, 30-year relationships, they just want to run because they literally can't carry the burden anymore. And it makes sense. And so it requires us to just ask ourselves, What do we wish they would do? And are we doing that? If we want them to be more lighthearted, can we be more lighthearted? Where are we not being more lighthearted? Where can we invite more of that in? And I'm not saying that it's easy. It's hard. It's super fucking hard. And we're not going to do it perfect all the time. Some days are going to be better than others. Some seasons of life are going to be easier than others. I want you to remember that healing is not a destination that you arrive to, that we're not trying to arrive to a relationship that is void of all conflict, that is void of all triggers. That is some fantastical world that simply does not exist. And when we hold that type of dream above our head, we end up putting ourselves and our relationships in impossible situations where we continuously fail to meet the expectation of the dream. So rather than holding this dream over our head and using it against ourselves every time a conflict comes up or any time that we're triggered, and instead say, look at this trigger, look at this conflict, what is the opportunity that is present here for me right now? You're going to reach that dream state way more often and for longer periods of time than holding it over your head and judging and comparing yourself to something that just simply doesn't exist. We have moments of it. We have periods of it. We have seasons of it, but we are always evolving and growing, and we are always learning. So instead, what I want to continuously give you guys are these reflections, these questions like today, that you can go back to, that you can use as like these tools in your toolkit that you can grab onto in the moments of conflict, in the moments of dissonance, in the moments of discomfort, in the moments of reactivity, in the moments of triggers. You can say, I have questions, I have reflections, I have prompts I can go to see what I'm meant to learn from this. So the next time you're criticizing or judging or hyperfixating on your partner, I want you to come back to this episode and ask yourself, what do I wish they would do differently? What do I wish they would do right now? I wish they would just ... finish the sentence. And then the second one, if they did that, how would you feel? Identify the attachment to their behavior, to their actions. Well, if they just did what I wish they would do, what I want them to do, then I would feel what? So you can see what this part of you that's triggered or activated or in reactivity, what that part of you really wants, right? That's really important. And then the third question to reality check ourselves, am I giving them that thing? Am I doing the thing that I wish they would do? And if not, can I use this opportunity to practice it? If I want them to be vulnerable, if I want him to process his emotions and tell me about it, okay, let me process my emotions and let me tell him about it. I feel helpless and like there's nothing I can do and I want to help. I processed it, I understood it, I shared it with him, right? And immediately, what did he do? He told me how he's processing his emotions. And guess what I felt in that moment? Safe, right? I created the environment, I provided it for myself, and then he poured into that. This is where we break free from the codependent dynamics, where I fill my cup up first, and then he adds to it, which adds to the overflow, which pours into our relationship cup between us, and then that fills up. This is what it means to be in a sovereign relationship where I am responsible for me, he is responsible for him, and we pour our overflow into our cup in between us, and then that flows into the world in the ways that we show up in our communities, in the ways that we show up in our work. When we're in codependent dynamics, I need you to do this thing and give it to me so that I can feel better. But what ends up happening, I know I use this analogy on the podcast a lot, is that it feels good for a moment, right? When they pour into us. So if I forced him, process your emotions. I need you to process your emotions with me and share it with me and tell me so that I can feel safe. And maybe he does that because I'm forcing him to, right? It feels good for a moment. It hits all my dopamine receptors on the way down, but then it goes out the bottom, and then I need it again. And then I need it again. And then I need it again. And now he is feeling the burden of constantly needing to be the provider of my good feelings. Because you cannot be filled with somebody else's essence. You can only be filled with your own. People can add to your overflow, and that's the point. It adds to your overflow. It cannot fill you. And so can we provide it for ourselves first? That's why the third question is really important. Are we doing the thing that we wish they would do? Are we giving to them or even giving to ourselves, right? Because it's the processing emotions. I am not processing my own emotions around this. I haven't even given myself that. So can I do that first before I ask or require it of him? And that makes sense, doesn't it? It was one of the biggest lessons I learned in our breakup, that I cannot ask Justin to meet a need of mine that I am not even meeting for myself, because that is where the codependent dynamic lives. You need to meet this need for me to feel okay. When it's not even a need I'm meeting for myself, I'm just going to continue to need it more and more and more, and I will be insatiable. And that is not sustainable. Either way, right? Vice versa. I know it doesn't just go one way, it goes both ways. And right now we're only talking about this way. The other way is boundaries. So I know we talk about boundaries a lot. We'll save that for, another podcast, another conversation on another day. But I truly hope that this episode can help you turn conflict into opportunities for deeper connection with yourself, which always gets reflected back in your relationship. Now, before we hop off, I want to go ahead and use this moment to reflect together. Healing the mother wound is about witnessing ourselves vulnerably and being witnessed by others. And so go ahead and scroll down to the comments, and I want you to go ahead and share your responses to the 3 questions. The first one, take whatever conflict that is most alive or most recent for you and your partner or whoever the conflict was with, a friend, a family member, and ask yourself, what do you wish they would do instead? I wish they would just do what? And then I want you to ask yourself, how would you feel if they did that thing? If they did the thing, then I would feel what? And then lastly, are you providing what you wish they would do to them or to yourself? Yes or no? Type it all out, share your reflections. Like I said in previous episodes, you don't even have to hit send. You do not even have to hit post. But please, 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 at least witness it for yourself. There is an alchemy that takes place when you write it out. Don't just think it in your head. Quite literally witness yourself by typing it out or writing it out. You can delete it afterwards. You don't have to post it, like I said, but at least witness yourself. Witness your thoughts and your reflections outside of you. It is so powerful. It is a point of alchemy, and I really highly encourage us all to start practicing that, because that is where the healing lives. That is where the alchemy lives. That's where the transformation exists. That's what I have for you guys today. If this podcast episode was helpful or supportive for you in any way, and you haven't done so already, please make sure that you are subscribed. And if you're feeling generous, you can leave a rating or review. I just actually looked at them the other day and I was not ready. You guys have left such beautiful reviews, and I'm telling you, sometimes I forget the impact of this work. And so you guys just reflecting that back to me is so, so beautiful. And I am eternally grateful for it. So thank you so much. And if you're wanting to dive into these conversations and get support, please join our community over on Substack. You can subscribe as a free member, or you can join our Codependency Alchemy membership and get access to our chat and dozens of masterclasses and meditations and live monthly calls where we do this inner work together. All the details will be in the show notes or the description box below, and I hope to see you there. I love you all so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.